Yes, very good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hope you are having a great evening, and congratulations to all of you for committing this evening for your own career, right? And we are going to have a really great like-minded people. And I can see many trainees of, HR trainees of ProTouch are online. So those who are new, who are not doing a course from ProTouch, there are many new candidates are also there. I welcome you also. And let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Aparna Sethi. I'm founder of ProTouch. And ProTouch is into upskilling. We completely believe in if one wants to go ahead in career, they need a professional touch. And that is what is ProTouch is all about. We are into various certification programs like HR Analytics, HR Generalist, and corporate training programs, as well as we are into executive training programs in association with I am an XLRI through Times Group. So that is all about ProTouch. I'm not going to waste a single minute after this because I'm excited for today's session. If you are excited, let me see your reactions. Can I see your reactions, please? You can use the reaction button, thumbs up, celebration, love, anything, whatever you want to use. Just let's put in and bring a lot of energy in the house. Excellent. That's so nice to see. Welcome everyone. And that is the positivity I feel. And it's my honor and privilege to welcome Devjani Roy today for our session. Devjani comes with, I'm sure that most of you must be knowing her. You must be following her on LinkedIn, on other social media channels. She comes with 24 years of experience in HR. In HR, she has handled, in 24 years, right? She has handled entire gamut of HR, right from IR, recruitment, learning and development, comp and ben, policy making, operation, diversity and inclusion, cross-cultural workforce, gender sensitization, HR shared services, and CSR. I think for today's evening, we cannot get a better person than Devjani. She has not only worked in really, functions of HR, but also worked in various industries. It starts from manufacturing, telecom, IT, ITIs, travel. These are the major areas she has worked in. And her philosophy of life is being honest and ethical. More than that, I would love to share the conversation which we had today in the evening. When we were discussing about this particular program, she said, now the time has come to give back to the society. This profession, HR, has given me a lot, and the time has come to give back. I'm ready to do mentoring, collaboration, giving the sessions. If I can help and impact lives, why not? Can we give her a big round of applause and welcome her for today's session? Just use your reaction buttons. Absolutely. Welcome, Devjani. Welcome to the forum. Most important thing, today's session is going to be extremely interactive. I'm going to ask only one question to her. After that, you have to, as the audience, you will be taking forward your session. So keep typing your questions about your career, your doubts, your challenges, your anxiety maybe in the chat box, and I will be taking forward those questions. So can I see that commitment from you? Yes or no? Let me know. Let me know your thumbs up, right? So keep your questions ready and let's take as much as we can from this session. Okay, so let's start. Welcome Devjani once again. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Aparna. I think it's very kind of you, very kind words used. I'm absolutely, exhilarated to be on this platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Devjani. And my first question to you, as the topic is accelerating HR career, right? no matter a person is on what level, can be on entry level, on, maybe on mid level. But would you like to give some insights on wherever you are right now, wherever the candidates can be, if they want to take ahead their career, what are the main things they can work upon?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Dr. Aparna, because um, I strongly believe that life is not about a continuous race. Career does not have to be a race in itself, and unlike a lot of what people believe in, that we are competing against each other. My motto right from start has always been that there is nothing better but to compete with your own self. The benchmarks that you set for yourself, the achievement orientation that you bring to the table, the kind of milestones that you want to achieve in life, those are some of the touch points that should be the guiding force for you when you approach to creating a career for yourself. There will be all kinds of people, they'll be running the race in the way they want to run, but it is how you strategize, it's how you build your competence, it's how you inculcate the right attributes, which are finally going to decide how far you can take this journey called your career. So according to me, Dr. Aparna, it's not just enough to have knowledge. Of course, it's a starting point. I would say that without knowledge, there's no way to go forward. But
Mhm.
knowledge is something which I consider a hygiene factor. But based on that knowledge, what you really need to bring to the table is an absolute thirst and a hunger for learning throughout your life. Because if you don't have learning, then obviously the amount of knowledge that you've gathered stagnates beyond a point of time and does not take you further. And that is the reason why you need to keep awake and keep pushing the boundaries of your learning quotient. The other important parts is your resilience, your adaptability to environments, because through your life, every time that you change career, that you move from one step to another, you actually open up yourself to various different kind of exposures, and those exposures are things which obviously will have to be taken in the right spirit. You may find collaboration around, you may find support from unending quarters, but at the end of the day, the decisions that you make, the way you step forward, the kind of empathy that you create around yourself, and the collaboration that takes you forward will depend on the kind of person that you make yourself into. So I feel that as a human being, there are few qualities that you necessarily need to work upon, based on which it'll decide ultimately what is the level of success that you can achieve for yourself, what are the pinnacles which you can reach, and how much can you actually pay back after that.
Great. So that is great to know. Let's start. I'm also looking forward for the questions from the audience in the chat box. So do put your questions in the chat box. I will also have a look at it. So let's start with the career, like, fresher. So if the fresher wants to make a career in HR, the typical question they come across is like, do you have experience? That is one thing. Another thing is this: in during COVID, hiring fresher has taken the back seat. So how they can build up the career in HR?
Well, ma'am, I have been at the receiving end of this question from, I think, now thousands of people. And I maintained my stand when the COVID really broke open, and we were in the start of April. And when we were moving into April, the first 2 months, we really were not in a situation to assess how far and how serious this pandemic was. We were still hoping that this is something which will go away, or we were wishing itself away. But then I think by the turn of May, we were quite sure that this was here to stay. And that's the time when I started interacting with various universities, various colleges, and I also met up with the academic boards of number of colleges that I also sit it on, so one of the open questions was, how do the children, how do the new generation make the best use of this time before them, especially people in HR, because I had maximum number of students reaching out from the HR fraternity, because they felt that, in this new normal where the workforce was changing, the ways of work was changing, suddenly the brick and mortar structures and the infrastructure of having offices was going
Mm.
away, and work from home was becoming suddenly the new, the new reality. How relevant was HR going to be? Because at this point of time, till this time before COVID, HR used to be a touch feel function. It used to have its maximum effect, especially when it had congregation and volumes of people before that. So it was a
Mm.
people function dependent on people interactivity, which very much required the presence of the physical being. But here we have had at the snap of a finger the entire paradigm shift, wherein we were looking at open offices, we were looking at 60 to 70% of the staff working from home, and we were looking at people coming into offices only if it was direly necessary. And this complete wave became a new reality for the HR professionals. And for the newcomers, those who were studying in the final years, those who wanted to make a career out of HR, were suddenly faced with the dilemma that yes, we have studied about HR, we are conceptually very strong, but how do we deal with these new realities of HR? Because this is new to everyone. And there are
Mm.
very few examples which are actually coaching and counseling us into understanding how to get around to it.
Mm.
That's when a lot of us industry specialists, not only me, but a lot of my fraternity colleagues, we actually stepped in a large way. There were a large number of students who became our mentors. We
Mhm.
actually took them around to the workings of it. And one of the things that I completely drove home to those individuals were, start working on a lockdown CV. We build CVs when the active periods are open in front of us. But then, are you going to be wasting the time that God has suddenly put in your lap? This kind of an open time where actually you can do something very creative with yourself. Because the
Mm.
biggest question that they had, especially the fresher, especially in the final years of colleges, is that how do I impress upon the placement committee? Because we have no internships, the internships have been withdrawn, the placement committees are not very gung-ho about giving us final offers. If
Mm.
that be the case, how do we impress upon the placement committee what we really did for these 6 to 7 months? And I clearly told them that this is a godsend opportunity. Work on creating a lockdown performer for yourself. Build
Mhm.
up your profile during a time when things were not under control. Your locus of control was outside. There were things happening which was
Mm.
absolutely new to you. But then, as intellectually capable individuals and mature individuals, you needed to strategize as to what were the two
Absolutely.
or three things that you wanted to do throughout your life but possibly could not, primarily because you never had the fancies or you never had the luxury of having this kind of time at your being. So
Mm.
exactly, Dr. Aparna, the question about the freshers, I told them, develop hobbies, develop skills. Maybe somebody loves photography, somebody loves
Mm.
creative writing, but they could never pursue it because of the lack of time. Now that you don't have internships, develop that as a creative pursuit for yourself. Write for
Mm.
yourself, reach out. There are enough pro bono opportunities where even young people are writing and those are getting published.
Right.
Secondly, reach out to mentors, people that you have always idolized, people
Mm.
whom you have followed on the social media, but you've
Mm.
never really had the courage to reach out to them. But today, those people also had some time on their hands. Okay,
Mm.
they also were looking at reciprocating with people around as to how the learning curve could be pushed. So find out, reach out to those people and start shadowing them so that you can
Yeah.
start understanding what leadership, what managerial competence is all about. And that can give you a very deep insight into what kind of skills an HR manager needs to learn about.
Absolutely.
Third, very important, read. I find today's generation, unfortunately, doctor, has lost out on the habit of reading. Either we do it under compulsion, and that's only the course books and the review material, and we don't go beyond that. Unfortunately, even reading a newspaper has become a luxury today. And half the time, when you meet with the young generation and quiz them on what their general common knowledge is all about, you are struck and you are horrified at the lack of it today. So
Mm.
my very strong influence was to develop a holistic personality. You need to go beyond just course books. You need to be
Absolutely.
a global citizen. You need to be able to hold yourself in any discussion happening tomorrow. You don't need to be an expert, but you at least need to know the particular subject. You shouldn't come across as somebody who's absolutely dumb and doesn't know what is being discussed. Because the moment you are in a community and you open your mouth and you express two sentences, and that comes at the right time, at the right moment, people start looking at you with respect. You know, your
So true.
reputation is created, your credibility is created, and I believe there is nothing more important for an HR person than its credibility. It is so difficult to make because we are the people who work with human psychology. It's an intangible matter, so half the time we are laboring under how to create credibility. But if you
So
can
true.
create a persona for yourself where you are erudite, you communicate well, you
Mm.
partake in discussions, you brainstorm properly, and you are there as a participant in local forums, I'm sure it's going to pay very big dividends for you. And if you could do all these things a little by little and develop a lockdown pro forma, when you go to place that, and when you go and appear before that placement committee at the end of the day, if I was there at the end of the placement committee and I go recruiting in many places, I would want to see how intelligently did this individual make use of the time available to her. How did
True.
she convert a disadvantage into an opportunity for self? Now, if I came across an individual who did all this and
Mm.
continued to develop self, I would
Mm.
surely be very impressed. So it is not
Amazing.
about, placement committees only looking for theoretical knowledge. But today, when we go for placements, we also look at resilience. We also look at agility of thought. We also look at critical thinking. We look at the ability for people to adapt and be flexible around it. So these are the new normal competencies that people need to develop, and more so the human resource professionals.
Amazing, Devjani. I think this is what you have given really great insights on new normal competencies. I mean, the hiring has, hiring requirements have changed. These are no more same. And, I came across a very powerful statement that economy cannot decide my economy.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is where we need to take ownership. And Devjani, I'm so glad to tell you that during this particular time also, our trainees, our students, are appearing for the interviews, are getting selected, and internships are coming in your way. I think we really feel proud to say that, during this time also, we could also place candidates of our institutes, and certainly those candidates who were always focused on, as you said, the new competence, what is required, right? So my takeaway for freshers will be develop the hobbies, which are very much important. Reach out, which is something very, very important. Reach out mentors and read. Which book, what book you are reading, it is very, very important. So on that note, I think I would love to take the another question. Now there are many students and the participants are there. Especially we have at ProTouch. They are working on, for example, US recruitment. Maybe, for example, around 6 to 7 years they are working in that particular field, and now they are trying to shift to HR generalist profile. Okay, and hence they are doing HR generalist course also from our institute, right? So knowledge part is taken care. So to great extent, ability part is also taken care because the course is very, very, very practical. Having said that, but how to shift from that US recruitment tag to HR generalist? So that is the question many candidates are facing. So it will be really nice if you can throw some light on that.
Lovely. I think it's a very, very pragmatic problem, and I do know of many individuals who do face these kind of roadblocks, in their
Hmm.
course of the career. Um, you know, per se, it's not just about US recruitment, but per se, a recruitment specialist in itself is
Hmm.
seen as a specialist role, which if you do too early on in life, it just
Hmm.
becomes a stigma for yourself. because then people start looking at you as somebody who's got rutted into one stereotype of a job, while the rest of the community has actually moved forward in doing generalist profiles. So one of the things that I would definitely want to at least tell my dear friends across the table here, that at least those who don't have too long an experience, that if you've got stuck into recruiting profiles, then the faster you are able to change out of that. See, having 1 to 2 years of recruitment exposure is very, very good. Okay, and for a a recruiter, let's say a recruiter of a high end organization, when they are trying to hire people with 1 to 3 years of experience, that little bit of 1 to 2 years of experience in a recruiting agency comes in handy, because they know that you will know the norms of recruitment, and resourcing will always be there for organizations till the cows come home. That function is not going to go away anywhere. But if you start remaining in recruitment for a very long period of time, especially at the start of your career, that is not really seen as something which is worthy of being taken on at a later stage of life. So let's say that you started off as a recruiting specialist and you stayed in an agency which continued to actually be in these kind of pocket and niche recruitments, and you stayed there for 5 or 6 years. The obvious question would be that, you were in only one segment of recruitment. Did it not occur to you that you wanted to explore things a little early in life? Because being 5 and 6 years means you've actually got that limited, that much of time behind you, when the rest of your when the rest of the community has moved forward. So be prudent about the time that you want to spend in only a specialist profile, especially when you're starting out in your life. Second, very important, if you want to now, given a situation that you've spent enough time in recruiting profiles and you start moving for interviews, and every time you start facing this kind of a blockage saying, oh, you've been in recruiting too long, one of the things that you can really impress upon is to give it back to the recruiter, by saying that even if I was in a recruiter profile, my profile was not just a linear recruitment alone. I was also a recruitment training person. I was also a back-end recruitment analytics person. I was not a straight-laced recruiter, which means just picking up a phone and coordinating candidates and making sure that they appear for interviews and then passing on their papers to the next organization. But I was actually somebody who partook in interviewing skills programs. I partook in understanding programs and understanding the psyche of candidates. Well, these were some of the papers that I actually wrote during my time at these particular positions. What it will do is to impress upon the person on the other side that even though you had a straight laced position and you did have a very, very myopic and a very structured kind of a role, you were an enterprising person who actually went beyond and did things which added to the competence of yourself. The minute you use words like training and development, or creating skill inventories, or analytics, because today resourcing is the biggest field for HR analytics. Wherever we go and teach HR analytics, and I teach in 2 MBA schools personally, one of the biggest areas where we find analytics creating a huge impact is
Yeah,
resourcing,
I
because there is
agree.
a direct cost. There is a direct cost related to it. And if we are able to do the analytics right, then decision making in resourcing areas becomes that much more prudent. So if you can use these words, and if you can actually back it up with a little bit of examples and smart kind of an oratory, I can tell you it becomes easier for you to influence the person on the other side about how enterprising you can be, even when you are slotted in a particular frame. The second thing is, if you have been in the recruiting area for too long, please don't aspire for a top niche company from day one, because you will be disappointed. You will be disappointed because nobody is going to give you that platform, only if you have limited yourself to recruitment on day one of your change. But if you decide that I'm not going to be a recruiter anymore and I'm going to move into a generalist profile, give yourself a time frame which is anything between 2 to 4 years. If you, and then start looking at organizations, look at MSMEs, look at SMEs, look at startups, look at unicorns, look at these different kind of organizations, and not necessarily the stable state organizations, because stable
Mm.
state organizations or large organizations have their own ways of recruitment. They have been doing this, there's a legacy, there's a tradition. They will not be very interested to take you on from day one. But the
Mm.
new guys in town, the new kinds of business, they will still be willing to take a risk, because that's the kind of risk profile those organizations come in with. And believe you me, some of the recruitment specialists whom I have personally seen move over to startup companies or
Mm.
unicorn companies or small SMEs, their learning has been immense,
Yep.
because these companies have a very small, lean and mean department. They don't believe in hiring too many people in HR. They look at that one person only to actually shoulder large responsibilities. And in one shot, you start specializing, you start preparing salaries, you start looking at, creating an onboarding process. You start looking at what kind of a performance management to put in place. You actually start brainstorming around that with people who are from industry, which actually enriches your learning. So you will have to
Mm.
give your time to yourself a little bit of a time for transition. Try different kinds of organizations. Look at creating a basket of exposures to yourself, which will ultimately lead you to your aspired, or your ambition of being a part of a larger organization. It'll require tenacity, it will require a
Mm.
dedicated and persevering knowledge on your part, and definitely require a lot of patience.
Amazing. I think this is the reinventing yourself in a true way. On the transition time, it is like just, you are coming from the byline and want to join or connect on highway. And for
Yes,
that matter, maybe you need to, make yourself little slow, work on your speed,
yes,
be there for some time, go slow, and then speed up. I think that is what is the strategy which will work.
yes.
So have patience and be there. Just focus. Try to see if you can get extended role in your current role, so that it will be easier for you to move forward. And I
Yes,
think this not only at US recruitment. After every 5 years, we are going to face this
yes,
transition, and we
yes,
have to come back, slow down, and take a leave. So that will always happen. Imagine the day, I think, when you were also fresher one day, and today you have 7 years of experience. So that is the journey everyone goes through. That is another thing. Now, there are quite a number of students have asked that there is a gap in their career. The gap can be looking at the family responsibility. Another gap can be because of now there are some COVID, the gap is coming out. So the question is how they can justify this gap during the interview. And let me tell you, Devjani, sorry, I would like to give one more insight. There are many students and many professionals have changed their jobs at the beginning of their career. And there is a high level of regret is also there. It's not like that they are not regretting now. But when you are young, you keep on doing this kind of mistakes. But now you cannot go back and change it. But how you can answer those questions? Tough questions.
yes, they are indeed tough questions. And they are not going to go away, because recruiting is getting very, very specialized now. Even when you go as a human resource person and you're actually looking to build a career in HR, I think the recruiter on the other side is becoming more and more finicky and picky. I use these two words, finicky, because
Mm.
he or she is no longer convinced with just generic skills,
Mhm.
and picky because there are n number of people already available in a line in the market today. Unfortunately, the market has got spoiled. There was a time when we used to look at, okay, an XLRI Jamshedpur, or we
Mm.
used to look at, an IIM Lucknow, or an IIM Ahmedabad, as giving us crops of enterprising HR professionals. My own alma mater, FMS Delhi University, today counted as number 3 in the list of India's best institutions, always had a very, very solid and very robust HR fraternity coming out every year. And you could bet your money on those guys, because the knowledge used to be so thorough, as well as the application science of understanding how to convert theory into practice used to be very high, because there was a good mix of professors who were drawn from both the industry as well as academics. FMS had started that model long time back. Even today, we are debating about it in many institutions, but FMS had taken a lead long time back. Now, to come to exactly the point that Dr. Aparna just mentioned, a sabbatical in career, especially and unfortunately in this country of ours, will always be held against the woman,
Yeah.
which is not so the case in the rest of the Western world. Let me tell you. I know of my friends' fraternity family who are settled abroad, both in the European continent, even in Gulf for that matter. We think the Gulf is a very, very restricted place, but even in places like Oman or Riyadh or Sharjah, you have people taking sabbaticals, ladies taking sabbaticals for multiple number of reasons, and still being able to come back after 1 year, 1.5 years, or 2 years, because taking a sabbatical for personal reason is not looked down upon. It's not considered a disadvantage or a weakness on the part of the woman. It is actually coveted that when a woman moves into a professional front, she does not need to relinquish the controls of a family. She still has an extended responsibility for the family. So when she has to juggle the two, there will come times when you will be faced with the eventuality of maybe taking a break. There are very few ladies who in their life have gone on unstretched and unbroken times of career building. Even an Indra Nui, for that matter. I don't know if any of you had caught her last, interview when she actually relinquished control, but she was very cathartic about it. She said she had had to take 2 breaks,
Yeah.
and every time she tried getting back, if it was an Indian position that she had to, take on, it was always an uphill story. But in the US, it was absolutely seamless, because it was actually considered to be energy giving. It was considered to be a stress release mechanism for ladies to sometimes take a sabbatical and then come back after a hiatus. So in our country, let's understand and let's take it for granted that we are anyway facing a stigma. Every time you take a sabbatical, people will think that there was something wrong about your last job, or you were forced to, quit that job. And now that you've stayed at home for some time, you've lost out on your competence. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't face this, okay? However, just like everything else, you need toughness, you need continuity in your learning, you need to be abreast and knowledgeable about everything that's happening to the industry. You need to come across as a person who's gregarious, who's outgoing, who's in sync with the industry, who's ready to give her best, if not what best, it's 110%, and having the ability to not just match what used to be the output earlier, but create a proper story so that you're able to impress the other person that you're as good as it gets even last time when you're on the job. It's not easy, but I speak from experience. I have
Yes.
taken 2 sabbaticals in my life. I have taken 2 sabbaticals of my life, and absolutely planned sabbaticals. The first one I took was when my daughter was 6 years of age. I used to be visiting the US once every 3 months. I was a part of the steering committee in HR, and my headquarters was in a place called Exton in Philadelphia. Company was Bentley Systems. It was an IT niche software company. Every time I would go, it would be for a stretch of about 10 to 12 days. And my daughter did not speak to me because I would be on the East Coast, the time zones would be very different. So when she would go to sleep, I would wake up when I was in the US. And then when I would go to sleep, she would wake up. The time zones were such. So there were days on ends where she did not speak to me. She could not. She wanted to reach out to mommy, and mommy was not around. So much so that happened that after 3 years of serving like this in Bentley, my daughter started having withdrawal symptoms. For the first time, I realized what a cost I was paying because of the kind of life. Now, on one hand, it was a gorgeous life. I was at the head of the table. I was a CHRO. I was traveling all over the world. At that young age, I was a member of the steering committee. I had already been fettered as one of the best HR managers across the globe by Greg Bentley himself, my chairman, who sat out of Exton. Everything looked glamorous. But then What about family? You don't start a family to leave them behind, right? So that was probably the first time when my partner, my husband, sat me down, who had never interfered in my career, and told me that if you had reached out for a family, you have a certain commitment and responsibility towards that. Maybe you should understand that a 5 or a 6 year old is not able to understand why mommy has to be away for such long durations without even being able to hear her voice. It's actually a panic for her. I took a sabbatical from then because I realized I was losing my daughter. Every time I would come back from US, she would turn her face away. She would actually go and hug the nanny who used to be my pillar of support at home, but she would shun her face away. It would take 2.5 days for her to start talking back with me. That was painful for a mother. And then I realized that, it's not enough just to be a careerist. You have to balance things out. That was the first time I took a sabbatical, and it was well worth it. Now the question is, how easy was it for me to go back? Wasn't wasn't easy, but I was a fighter. I was very tenacious. I also told myself that when I was wanting to get back to the industry, and it was 1 year, 10 months, almost close to 2 years, that the sabbatical I was in. Okay. By that time, I think my daughter had grown up certain amount. She was almost coming to 8 years of age. She started realizing that, what a job is all about. We had done a lot of, talk between us. So it was time for me to go back. And that was the time when I told myself that don't look for the best opportunity. The best opportunity is not going to come to you because you've been on a sabbatical. What you need to do is to get back into the mainstream. And to get back into the mainstream, even if you have to compromise a bit on probably the role, not in terms of seniority, but in terms of, okay, not a full-fledged generalist role, but maybe a part of it, okay, for some time to start with. Or maybe you have to compromise on certain terms of your appointment. I'm going to give it a go. Because at that time, I was at the receiving end, and I decided that I wanted to change the situation to my advantage. So I can tell you, when I joined a company after 1 year, 10 months, it was not an ideal company at all. I can't name the company, but I can tell you, what one of the circumstances was. My co-chairman of the company was in Tihar jail at that point of time because of a crime he had committed in social life. And every time, and the company was moving very aggressively into hospitality, into large number of new age areas. But every time I would have to get papers signed, I would have to go by the company car. The car would be parked in front of the jail doors, and a man would take the papers inside and get it signed from inside. Not a very interesting time, situation to work in. Every time I would approach those Tihar jail gates, I would start thinking about, God, where have I come to? Is this what I want to do? Is this for what I have created my career? And I used to sometimes I used to go back comparing, if only I did not, if only I could have, I would start questioning myself. But then you have to fight this battle within yourself. I stayed put in that company for 6 months. Okay. Given the fact that I was already a known professional in the industry as an upcoming manager who had already won a lot of awards, I was fighting through with a lot of consultants. And finally, at the end of 7th month, I got a delightful break, which proved that, if you are at it, if you have the tenacity, if you know the right person, if you're smart around to find out the right people who are working with the right industries, and you also reach out to people and create a network for yourself, it does become easier for you to get back into the mainstream, okay, without having to compromise too much. So my single point agenda here would be, let's not write away the fact that many of us in our lives do require sabbaticals for the right or the wrong reasons. Where you give it up yourself because of stress and because of not being able to balance work life, now that's an area I don't want to comment on, because I personally feel that when women commit themselves to a career, you should go all the way up. You should not compromise because you're a much better lot. The women CHROs and the women CXOs are better off today, and they are a much more coveted lot than the men. So we should not give up when we have reached that stage, because that's an unfair bit. You work harder, you're more determined, you're more dedicated, and just when you are at the top, you suddenly give it all up, which to me is unacceptable. So for me, that is not the right reason for a sabbatical. But for anything else, which could be yourself, your health, health of a near and dear one, balancing your work on a front which could be an emergency, I'm sure many of us might require that in our lifestyle. And you need to find pragmatic ways. You can't get out of the industry and forget about it completely. Your learning has to continue. Stay in touch with your network. Regularly call up people with whom you have worked in the past. Keep that buzz alive so that the day you decide to come back, you have a ripe network available whom you can just pick up a phone and speak to very seamlessly. That needs to be important. Your ability to stay in sync with the industry needs to be important. And if you are able to do these things, I don't think getting back into an industry is insurmountable.
You know what I feel, Devjani? First of all, we have not committed the crime. Okay. What is the story you tell about your break is very important. I came across a wonderful trainee of our institute, and she got placed, after her break, 4 years break. I said, "What is the answer you gave?" And she said, I said very nicely, "Yes, I was on a break. I want to live a complete cycle of my life. And God wanted me to be away from my job for 4 years and take care of the new life. And I did it. I'm extremely happy to come back. I have taken care and I have experienced that phase of my life. And I'm completely ready to take up the new position." I mean, how convincing and how positive answer is that? So, we carry the baggage of the break. If
Absolutely.
you have the valid answer, I personally believe in one thing, that, career is a part of life. It is not your complete life.
Absolutely.
And it is perfectly all right to take a break. Only thing where we go wrong, if we are completely disconnected from the industry.
Correct.
There is a time like, today I'm, by God grace, earning really good amount of money, but I have worked on 50 rupees per hour basis. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. 50 rupees per hour basis, that helped me to remain in the job, that helped me to keep my confidence up, you know. So that is the struggle we are going through. And it will take a lot of time. Either we can keep on fighting with responsibility, what? Let that fight keep going on, but do take care of yourself. That is the one thing I would love to tell all of you. Right?
Another thing, Dr. Aparna, and I want to reinforce what you said. It's
Yes.
because you were equally happy and you
Hmm.
were equally tenacious earning 50 rupees a day,
Yeah.
which is why today you're seeing the day today, which is why
True.
it has brought you to where you are today. Because had you given up or had you cribbed about it, those are the negative qualities that would have pulled you down. But what you did to yourself was to create a motivation circle around yourself. And that, Dr. Aparna, I believe in the power of self.
Yes.
I've always believed in the power of self. We go and attend lectures. We listen to other people. We are very, very, excited listening to management gurus. But have
Hmm.
we listened to ourselves? We are the best possible people to motivate and give us wisdom. We are the best people to tell ourselves that this cannot be a break for you. You've got much more in you which can push you forward. I think that's some of the things, those are simple things and common sense things which today's
Hmm.
generation is not practicing. The power of the word and the power of self is immense. If
Immense.
anybody wants to
Absolutely.
practice that, and if you just get up in the morning and talk to yourself and say that this is a day when I'm going to change my future, this is a day when I'm going to do two things which is going to have a lasting impact. Believe you me, when you go to sleep that day, you will go with a very solid peace of mind because you would have done it for yourself. That resolve is important. That ability to convert a disadvantage into an opportunity is important.
I think, Devjani, if I would do that, I will not even go to sleep on that day. I will be so
Absolutely, I think it's
excited to
so
work
exuberant.
on it.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Great.
Another thing, Dr. Aparna, which we will have to fight against, and I'm sorry I'm taking a little more time because I'm passionate about this subject. I'm a part of a lot of CXO, CHRO groups, and I play the role of a positive mentor even with my colleagues.
Hmm.
I have told them very clearly that stop your habit of trying to get into the life of your recruitee, which means that if a young girl is sitting against in front of you, she's got everything going for her. She's got the competence, she's got the knowledge, she seems to be coming with really good rich experience.
Hmm.
Why would you want to know what are her marriage plans? Why do you want to know how soon is she going to start a family? Because if we were in the United States, this is a federal criminal, it's a federal crime. You would have been put behind bars for making gender specific comments.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, in India, we don't respect these things. The day we stop asking these questions to my beautiful girls in front, we will have much more dedicated and motivated people joining back. But it's
I
because
think,
of this prohibitive mindsets that
yes,
sometimes we do injustice. And that is one of the reasons for difficulties in people of coming back from sabbaticals.
absolutely. And with that, I think she deserves a big round of applause. Can we give her a big round of applause to her? I love the spirit. Amazing. Great. And Devjani, after this, the most important part has come is money. During transition time, now, for example, there are candidates who are also writing here, like there is Ashiti, Manisha, you know, they have done also course from our institute and they are extremely satisfied with the course. Having said that, there is one challenge they face that, one now Manisha has worked in US recruitment and now another person is Ashiti, she has also worked in one profile. Now she gained this knowledge of HR generalist course from us. Now the time has come to step up. While stepping up, they are not getting the salary for that additional knowledge and additional competence what they have developed. So if we have to deal with the salary part in a transition time, what are the insight you would like to give?
So, I empathize with my the ladies across the table here. I really empathize because just like I would like to determine your time of marriage and your time of childbirth, I will also get into a room of telling myself, supposing you were sitting in front of me, I will get into value judgment that this person for the last 3 to 4 years has done recruitment. Okay, she has done a generalist profile, but she hasn't yet shown it anywhere. And she's going to use my
Hmm.
organization as a platform to start building and showing her credibility. I will not give her, therefore, the market level at which professionals of generalist profiles are. I would actually treat her like a trainee or a starting apprentice for a generalist profile. This happens everywhere. This happens everywhere, my dear friends. It also happens with I mean, I can't imagine, I can tell you, just like we HR professionals have this problem, finance professionals, when they come out of an MBA and then they do a chartered accountancy, it's the same for them. A chartered accountant from day one is always a wanted commodity. But an MBA finance is looked down upon compared to a chartered accountant. And even if it is a full fledged management course with a finance specialization, they would always want that a CA should have taken that place. And they will
Hmm.
never be brought on par with compensation because they want to create that little bit of a subtle difference. For people who are therefore making this transition,
Hmm.
my simple advice would be that you can't fight an industry trend, you can't fight a market trend. You alone will not be doing it won't be possible for you, because what are you supposed to do? Are you going to be fighting, or are you going to be trying to get into a career space? At least it'll give you a mainstream exposure. Getting into a generalist profile, at least it'll move you away from that stereotype that you've been facing.
Hmm.
There is a large industry voice today which are already talking about these trends. And I do feel that in the next 6 to 7 years, I'm just putting a figure, but it could be faster or it could even be longer, depending on how well we want to push the cause. Just like we are talking about parity of compensation between men and women at all positions, we are also talking about inclusion of women in every possible decision making. We are talking about board positions for women where it doesn't come because the Supreme Court ordains it, but because women are given a fair chance to qualify for that. We are raising voices for these issues. We are also raising voice for the fact that when an incumbent is taken in at a fresher level, then we don't see the past, we look at the potential. We look
Hmm.
at what potential that individual is bringing to the table. So if you have done a course, a generalist course from ProTouch, and if you have an experience of, let's say, 3 years before that, what we as hiring managers should not be doing is only looking at those 3 years in isolation, but we should actually be looking at 3 years plus the ability of yours to get into further education and upskilling yourself to prepare yourself for better things in HR. I think that becomes your hallmark of the potential that you're going to bring to the table. Now, if I was an empowered hiring manager, and there are plenty of empowered hiring managers, so I don't want most of you to get into this negativity that no, everybody judges everyone the same way. That's not true. We have a lot of hiring managers who are shifting away from that old school of thought, and they have started giving a lot of credence to things like agile thinking, upskilling themselves, ability to push the envelope to your own learning. The minute they realize that yes, you are part of that fraternity, they probably will give you a better deal than what it used to be yesterday. But it is still not the same. It will still not be the same even today as a person who would have put in 3 years of generalist experience right from start. They will want to keep that difference because they would like to understand that, when an HR person moves through the generalist points, what happens is they can move into specialist roles later, and they can be deployed in any specialist roles because of the generalized foundation that they had been exposed to from start. Compared to that, when in the reverse, you are a specialist moving into a generalist role, they understand that it is going to take you that much more time in developing mastery over many other sub functions of HR. You're not coming in with that sitting experience of understanding the practical application in HR sub functions. Therefore, they discount that little bit of a period, and that gets reflected in the compensation offered to you. As I said at the start, don't fight this, because fighting it individually might ultimately lead to you overlooking a good offer. I've seen that. I've seen
True.
some youngsters who don't evaluate the pros and cons, who don't understand the ROI which is coming in, who don't understand that this particular step could actually take me back rather than take me forward. So I think some of those very strong concerns need to be kept in mind. Don't just take a decision overnight based on emotions. You need to work this out by speaking to industry specialists. Talk to people who you think are your mentors. It could be your professors. It could be people who've guided you in your choice of career. It could be parents back home. It could be professionals back home. Whoever you trust and whoever you are able to sort of debate things out, do take that mental acumen and then take a conscious decision. Because just deciding on an opportunity on the basis of compensation may not always be the right area, may not always be the right step. That's what I would like to answer at this stage.
Amazing. And I would like to add on to that. I have seen whether you're a fresher, whether you are a mid-level career and you want to move to other career. I always say that, okay, practical experience is one thing, but it will have a limitation. But nobody has stopped you to work on the secondary data. You can keep on reading. Like, for example, what are the things happening in onboarding? What are the things, work from home policies? What is it happening? You are in Google, you are in part of so many WhatsApp group. You make some document, make, reading, start typing, you start make your own reports. Believe me, no one can take away anything from you, right?
So
So
that's exactly what Dr. Aparna I said at the beginning when we talked
yes,
about the lockdown period. Who
ah,
stops you from experimenting with yourself?
how many of you are writing on LinkedIn? How many of you have a blog spot? That is what also Devjani mentioned at the beginning. So that is where you have to show the extra efforts when you are going forward. Now, for example, there are so many professional wants to shift. So now you have done a 90 hours course with us. You have done 2 more certification, everything, and again you are writing. Please look at your resume, how heavy it is becoming, right?
And
So
I want to pick up here. I want to pick up here because um, I know a lot of pundits in the industry. They
Hmm.
feel that HR log बिकते नहीं है. They don't know how to sell themselves. Okay,
Hmm.
and I'm sorry, I would agree to that. Unlike a marketing, which is
Hmm.
all about selling yourself and branding yourself and going all about flashing your power stories, HR also needs to be visible today. Jo dikta hai
Yep.
wo bikta hai.
Fix
Let's
that.
understand that. And there is no repentance, there is no apology behind tom-tomming about your competence and your efficiencies. Exactly what Doc said right now, Dr. Aparna. If you have done a 90-hour course, and if you've done 2 certifications, and you also have got almighty experience behind that, why are you not projecting yourself in a way which should tell the person on the other side that I'm God's answer to mankind? Why can't you build a legible story for yourself? Why can't you create an oratory? Why can't you do storytelling? Why can't you build a blog? Why can't you do something which in a way tells the person on the other side that you've got an asset in your hand? Why should you come across as a linear person? Why do you always need to get clubbed as a recruiting specialist? There's nothing wrong in a
Hmm.
recruiting specialist, but can you be known as somebody who has done recruitment? Forget about specialist. You've done recruitment, but you also have a lot more in you. Can you come to be known as that? So, my dear friends, start talking about yourself. Start writing about yourself. These things about youngsters today writing on LinkedIn, okay, flashing headlines on Twitter. This is not about being active on social media for the sake of it. I hate that trend. I hate spending
Hmm.
time on social media without a cause. But even people
Yes.
like us, we are prolific on social media because we want to retain our visibility. Because with visibility comes respect if you have the ability to influence. That's why LinkedIn has something called an influencer.
Yep. And I think the what you said, at the beginning, two words you used very nicely: reputation and credibility.
Yes.
So reputation, digital media and social media certainly gives us the platform to create our reputation and credibility. If you follow it very ethically, not copying, giving credits, writing properly just to get few followers, putting some, video. If you don't do all that, believe me, that is very important. I go through people's, LinkedIn, and I've seen 2 3 months there is no post. That means you are dead. And when people are hiring, they always look at Naukri profile, always look at your LinkedIn profile. So interchangeably, they will keep on seeing you. Are you active? Otherwise, you're dead.
One of the things people who follow will always see is that are you consistent across the board, or are you
Absolutely.
just a flash in the pan? Now, if you are just a familial person, then Facebook would be where we would find you more. You will talk about your birthday celebrations, you'll talk about this, that, and a lot of good feel kind of stuff. But when it comes to the professional domain, it's the other platform which works better. Now, as a
Hmm.
holistic individual, and I'm telling you today, there is no space for specialists. We are in the age of generalists. We are in the age of
Absolutely.
being multifarious people into one. We all have to be multi-skilled into one. There is no other option. You're not going to be heading into an area where you will have the luxury to fall back on people, where there'll be
Hmm.
one person doing this for you and another person doing that for you. I'm sorry, those
Hmm.
before COVID luxuries are not going to come back after COVID.
True.
That's the new normal.
I think, yeah, absolutely. Now, if you look at it, Devjani, we started with freshers challenges. We took some questions for transition, mid-level challenges. Now there is one senior level challenge, and I would like to take up this question. Our student Praveen, who has got 19 years of experience, and I'm amazed to see,
Wow.
the kind of diversity we have in our institute, right
Wow.
from freshers to person who has got 2 decades of experience. And now he's mentioning he has total 19 years of experience, but in HR in only last 4 to 5 years.
Mm, mm.
And now he's also doing, I suppose, a course in analytics, HR analytics. So how should I move forward in getting a job in HR? Though I have a knowledge of all areas of HR, but my resume has 13 years of experience in MIS and operations. So what is it that will help him to take his career forward? Now, this is a senior level person, so the challenges are completely different.
Very different. Yes. Very different. And the first thing that you need to do is to have a very critical look at the CV, at your CV. If you say that you have about 13 years of experience in operations, nothing can be better than having an all comprehensive understanding of business than being in operations. So I don't see a career in operations to become a binding factor or a hindrance to move into HR. But the way you need to project it has to be different. Okay. And enlightened organizations will leap at assets like you because they want people who have moved from staff function to line function and back to staff function. Because if you have only linear specialists, again, I repeat, gone are the days of linearity. Gone are the days of only myopic specializations. You need to create a seamless transition in your CV, in your curriculum vitae, where while you were employed in operations, you also need to talk about human related factors in the operations time, which you were a party to handling. So, as an effective manager, as somebody who was front ending with one of the biggest teams in the organization, because operation teams are always very large, okay, you need to project the kind of people oriented problems that you dealt with. Not only will you talk about metrics, which will talk about your proficiency with operations or understanding business, but also bring in the forefront your ability to be known as a good man manager. Because only those people rise to become the CHROs and CXOs and CEOs tomorrow are the people who nicely graduate from being tactical managers to strategic managers. Because when you're at a junior level, you are doing more work with hands and legs, which is more ground realities. That's tactical. But the more you move up the ladder, the more you diversify your ability to cross functionally understand the different kind of genres, that will mean you need to be effectively manning the people, which means how well do you lead teams, how well do you actually create cross functional expertise, how well do you hone compatibility between different kind of teams. Those are the kind of capabilities which will be needed to look at. But is your CV speaking that language? Or when you go for an interview, are you able to create that story? If not, time for change. Because if you just go and say, I have been in operations for 13 years, but now I want to shift to HR, case is closed.
And
What
Devjani, he has already shifted to HR. Last 5 years, he's in HR.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm trying to say is don't harp too much on the fact that you were an exclusive ops person even before you moved into HR. What I want you to project is when I was in ops, I handled a lot of people projects. I actually was a very good man manager. So apart from understanding metrics in operations, I always had an inclination to deal in human resource. So much so that finally, because of the good counsel of some people, I finally chose to move into that department. And today I feel that I am at a stage where I can only accelerate that further because I also have the theoretical knowledge, which I was missing earlier. So I bring myself before you a composite package about somebody who understands ground realities, business factors, critical success factors of an organization, but also knows how to handle the biggest and critical piece which makes organization successful, which is its human resource. That is the language you have to create. That is the way you have to plot your CV. So even when you, in your CV, when you discuss your operations bit, please highlight some milestones, some awards, some, because I know every organization today rewards people who do cross-cultural projects. We are talking about, HR, finance, projects, operations, IT, all coming together and forming cross projects because that's the norm of the day. So you can very well highlight that in your CV. Maybe it was not so profound. Use the help of English language to create a story within itself. Nobody will hold you responsible for probably just exaggerating that bit, but do it with conviction.
Yes.
If you write something and if you're not able to project it when you go and meet with the interviewer, then obviously the gap will come across. So say that much, which actually was a reflection of the truth, and take it forward. I believe nobody will hold that operations experience against you. I've seen a lot of people moving cross functionally. I've seen marketing guys becoming very good CHROs. I've seen finance people taking over HR. Vice versa, I've seen actually HR people also taking over finance.
Great.
So it is not something which is a complete barred functionality today, but equip yourself because substance has to talk over just the noise part of it. As long as a substance you have equipped yourself and you're speaking the language which the person on the other side wants to hear, it's a win-win situation. So work towards that.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for that insight. And I will suggest one book
Thank
for.
you, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead, Praveen.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you to you. And very important.
I would like to thank Devjani, ma'am. Yeah,
You're always welcome, dear.
yes, ma'am, please.
I have also given Devjani's email, not email, LinkedIn link to all of you. I have
Yes.
given my link to all of you. I have also given our, website I have given all the brochures, uh, which can give you a lot of information. I will suggest, especially on senior level, you must read a book by Marshall Goldsmith. What got you here will not take
What
you
get
there.
you there? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, amazing book that may not be that great for the maybe entry level people, but mid level and senior level need to read that book. There was some one query on books, so I think first 90 days is one thing which you must have. Work rule is something, is HR related book. Again, you must have that book. So these are a few books I would like to suggest. Those who are into career transition, Reinvent Yourself is the book which is available. Must have, believe me, it is giving you a lot of insights on career transition. Currently I'm reading this book, Million
Ah,
Dollar Market.
okay.
Amazing book, it's a life-changing book, so please read this book. Keep reading book. Anything you would like to add from your side, Devjani, about books?
Yes, I mean, to your list, I mean, of course, Brian Marshall book is one of my favorite, but I think the book I thoroughly enjoyed in the last decade, I thought in the management side, a book which really made me understand a lot of stereotypes is Malcolm Gladwell's Inflection Point.
Okay,
uh,
great.
it talks about the professional journey, and you
Hmm,
are all in the professional journey, right?
hmm, hmm,
Some may be 3 years, some may be 5 years, some may be 19 years, as Praveen just talked about. Okay. And it doesn't take away anything from us. At every stage of your journey, we have our confusions, we have our strifes, we have our stresses, we have
hmm,
multiple questions in front of us, so much so that at some time you feel that you're standing on a cliff, and you're absolutely at the edge of a cliff, and you feel so helpless at that time that you can easily topple over. In management, what is toppling over? You get into negativity, you get into a negative grind, you get into depression, you start believing that you can't do with a career anymore, things are not going your way. I have seen these anxiety disorders become a part of a lot of good professionals' lives multiple ways. And that's when Malcolm Gladwell beautifully talks about strategies, simple common sense ideas, simple ways of applying in life, how you can turn that thinking around when you're at the precipice of a cliff and you're almost going to topple over, how you can pull yourself back. It's resonance and resilience at its best. I think it's something which I keep repeatedly reading that book. Every time I read it,
Dev,
I get a new essence out of it. I get a new meaning out of it. So I would like to thank.
Devjani, if you don't mind, could you please put the name of the book and the author in the chat box? There are people who are asking about it. Great. I think that is where we got a lot of insights on career, right? I'm sure that you must have got a lot of insights on, I tried to take all the maximum questions, and some questions were clubbed. That is career transition. I'm a fresher. I'm, worked in finance and now shifting to HR. So these are all questions we tried to club. Looking at the time, I think, we need to now come to the end of the session. Thank you so much, Sai, for motivating session, and thank you so much for writing it. Express your, you know, which names, Rexona. I think we have given the names. From my side, there was first 90 days, reinvent yourself, work rules, that is all about Google, right? Million Dollar Habits. So that is the recent book which I'm reading. There are many, I mean, it's a big library that it is not in my mind much, but buy one book, invest in yourself. Resume is yours. If someone is, this is your career. If you don't invest, who else will invest, right? Keep making your drafts of new resumes. Take feedback from people, from your family members. It is very important. Believe me, if you focus, I came across a very nice line today. How badly you want. Is it that if you don't change your career that you won't be alive? If that is the need, the things will happen. बट हमें लगता है जिंदगी चल रही है ना, सैलरी आ रही है ना, मेरे घर के मेरे मेरे सैलरी के ऊपर घर नहीं चल रहा है ना. These are the thoughts sometimes, stop us. But
And
if
as
you
I said, to all that Dr. Aparna said, please learn to market yourself. Please learn to be visible in the circuit. Please learn to demonstrate your competencies. People are not, soothsayers. People are not Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar, जो आपके through आपका qualification, आपका competence देखने में माहिर होंगे. There are lots of people who don't have the time today to even spend 5 minutes of talk with you. So you need to create a persona which is going to hook, line, and sinker, capture the imagination of the person on the other side. That's the way you need to develop your communication skill. That's the way you need to develop your personality. That's the way you need to put forth, okay, what your best points are. So when they say put your best foot forward, that's how you need to project yourself.
Absolutely. I think that is where we are coming to end of the session. I have given you all the numbers. We are accessible on LinkedIn. Devjani and myself, both of us are there. Please let us know if you need any help. I also do a lot of career coaching. I try to spend a lot of time with students. Let me know if I can be helped. I think Devjani is also very, very people-friendly person. So you can approach her as well. And on that note, I want to thank Devjani for such a wonderful, interactive, encouraging, and thoughtful session, right? She deserves a big round of applause. Can we have the big round of applause for Devjani? Yes, thank you. I mean, really
Thank you
great.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this is just a beginning. Look forward for a great association with you, Devjani. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. All the best to all my friends out there. And Dr. Aparna, you're doing a great job. We should collaborate and look forward to meeting each other again in the future.
Sure. Look
Thank you.
forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you. If you want to have any information about our course and all, in case you can remain there, I can address your questions in case if you want. Okay. So if you want, you can remain if you want to have anything, any discussion. Unmute yourself and let me know if you have anything.